Good afternoon, everyone, and can I welcome everyone to today's Cabinet meeting of Suffolk County Council. This meeting is being webcast live and will be available to watch subsequently on the County Council's website, and members of the public and press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded, provided due courtesy and respect are shown to others in attendance in line with the Council's published guidance. Can I just ask everyone just to double check your mobile phones are on silent and volumes on laptops turned right down as well, please. We're not expecting a fire drill. In the event that the alarm sounds, please leave the chamber by following the fire exit signs at the rear of the chamber, and fire evacuation instructions can also be found on page 4 of the agenda. Before we move to the first item, apologies for absence, can I just take this opportunity to wish Councillor Cenci a very happy birthday. Okay, apologies for absence. Do we have any, please?
No apologies for absence have been received for today's Cabinet meeting.
Thanks very much. Declarations of interest and dispensations by Cabinet members. Do we have any? Yes, Councillor Wiles.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon to everyone. I'd like to declare an interest in item number 8 due to my attendance at the Felixstowe Town Council extraordinary meeting on the 22nd of January, in which we discussed Unity School Partnership.
So for that item, you'll leave the room. Thank you. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting. Cabinet members, you've got the previous minutes of the meeting held on the 9th and 12th of January in front of you. Are you happy that I sign those as a true reflection of the meeting? Is that agreed? Agreed? Thank you. I'll do that after the meeting. Okay, the next item is public questions. One public question has been received. I'd like to invite Councillor Amanda Foley to come to the microphone if you'd like to read out your question, and then Councillor Reid will provide the response.
Thank you, and thank you, councillors, for your time. Sorry, my eyesight's terrible. I ask that the decision to award Unity School Partnership another school in our town of Felixstowe, whilst the two it already has are failing the community, to be paused until further representation can be found for this school.
Thank you very much. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Foley, for your question. And as you are aware, later in today's meeting at agenda item 8, my Cabinet colleagues and I will be considering a report from officers in relation to the creation of new primary schools in North Felixstowe and Brightwell Lakes, and proposals to endorse preferred academy trusts to run those schools. And as such, it would be inappropriate for me to preempt that discussion now, but you're most welcome to stay and listen to the discussion. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary question at all? No? Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, the next item, agenda item 5, is the standing item, the update from the Scrutiny Chairman. I'd like to invite Councillor Michael Ladd as Chair of the Scrutiny Committee to provide that update. Councillor Ladd.
Thank you, Chairman. And just reporting on the one scrutiny meeting, which was 2 weeks ago today on the 13th of January, which is the pre-decision scrutiny of the Council's 2026-27 revenue budget and 2026-30 capital programme. I'd like to take this opportunity, if I can, to thank yourself, Chairman, and also the other Cabinet members and their officers for attending this meeting and for providing all the information in an honest and open way. Also like to thank Councillor Smith and his finance team of Lou Ainsley and Andrew Philby for all the information they provided beforehand and actually answering the questions on the actual day. I just say that the committee was satisfied that the proposals for the 2026-27 budget and the medium-term financial plan, the capital budget and the reserves position and policy. It was also satisfied that the Council's finances are robust for 26-27, but recognised that further work is required in conjunction with the Government to ensure the Council's finances are sustainable from 27-28. It was also satisfied that resources have been allocated in accordance with the county's priorities and in a way that will provide the best possible outcomes for Suffolk residents. And finally, it was satisfied that the Council had taken into account value for money in developing the 2026-27 budget. There are various recommendations there, Chairman, through to H. I just wanted to mention the committee also agreed, we had a training session with Ian Parry from the Centre of Governance and Scrutiny the week before, and his comments were that he thought Suffolk County Council done budget scrutiny extremely well. But if he was gilding the lily, he would suggest that we looked at the outturn mid-year and also to start looking at the next budget. So we will be scheduling a meeting in September to review the outturn report and to consider the how to influence the budget for 27-28. But other than that, I think we were happy with the budget as it stands, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Yeah, thank you for the paper, and thank you for the whole of scrutiny that day. It was, as always, important that we come and are challenged on what's before us. But I'll hand over to Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you very much. And I echo those thanks. It was a challenging but enjoyable day, and it was worthwhile. Grateful to the time commitment of yourself and the members of the Scrutiny Committee. And I'm also grateful for the recommendations which we have looked at in some detail. One or two of them I will be referring to, or the outcome from, in the speech that I'm going to make later this afternoon. And I just want particularly to refer to recommendation H, which is about writing to the government about the fee that is charged for blue badges. That fee hasn't changed for 10, 12 years, and it's thought by your committee, and I agree that perhaps it's something we need to draw to the attention of government. I am just talking to officers to see if, rather than a letter from us, we might have a kind of a round-robin letter, which might have a greater force and greater effect with the government. But if not, we will certainly send one from Suffolk County Council. So thank you very much.
Round-robin from other counties?
Yes, sorry. Yes, I did mean from other county councils.
Thank you for that. Okay, thank you very much for that. And the points that you've raised obviously will be picked up in today and at full council as well, no doubt. Okay, so we'll move on. The next item is agenda item 6, to determine the school admission arrangements for 27-28 school year. And I'll hand over to Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm bringing this paper to Cabinet because every year all admission authorities must determine their admission arrangements, including their published admission numbers, by the 28th of February in the determination year, even if they have not changed from previous years and a consultation has not been required. You will recall that on the 15th of July 2025, the Cabinet redetermined the school admission arrangements for 25-26 and the 26-27 school years because the school's adjudicator determined that the arrangements did not fully conform with the requirements as set out in the School Admissions Code. The Council consulted on the proposed school admission arrangements for 27-28 school year between the 6th of October and 17th of November 2025. This highlighted the changes that were approved by Cabinet on the 15th of July 25 and proposed to reduce the published admission numbers for 4 community schools as set out in paragraph 5 on page 24. There were 2 comments received to the consultation as set out in paragraphs 32 and 34, but both are out of scope for this consultation. There is no further scope at this time for the Council to make any further changes, as this would require consultation within the statutory consultation timeframe. The next opportunity to consult on the school admissions process and arrangements is for a 6-week period between the 1st of October 2026 and the 31st of January 2027 for the 28-29 school year. I recommend that the Council approves the proposed amendments to the admission arrangements for the 27-28 school years as detailed in this report. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yes, I mean, the report's very self-explanatory. Any Cabinet colleagues wish to come in and comment? Happy to open it up to others. Anyone wish to come in on this one? I think this is fairly straightforward. So, Councillor Reid, could you just remind Cabinet what we're being asked to decide today, please?
Yes, thank you. So, Cabinet is asked to approve the local authority's school admission arrangements for the 27-28 school year. This includes the proposed oversubscription criteria that appear in Appendix 1 and the proposed published admission numbers, PAN, for the maintained community and voluntary controlled schools as shown in Appendix 2.
Cabinet, are we in favour of that recommendation? Can we have a show of hands, please? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item, agenda item 7, is the dual provision children's home, and I'll hand over to Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Cabinet is being asked to approve the development of a dual provision children's home in Saxmundham. Like many councils, Suffolk is seeing a rise in the number of children and young people with complex needs who need the right care and support. It's a growing challenge for local authorities across the country, both demand and the complexity of need only likely to increase. Indeed, it's been noticed by our recent budget figures, this is the area where we face the highest and often most unpredictable cost pressures within the young people and children's directorate. There's currently a lot of choice within the care market, and children are entering care later with lived experiences, meaning they often require more specialist care and support, which in turn means higher costs. And we are also seeing external provider costs increase year on year. It's our duty to ensure we are getting the best value for money so we can make sure every penny of our budget is spent delivering for families and children and who need it most, and to keep up with this demand and to reduce our reliance on high cost out-of-area placements. There is a need in Suffolk for more local Ofsted registered placements for children with complex needs. This new provision at Saxmundham will offer just that. It will help more Suffolk children to continue to live close to where they would call home, whilst providing the bespoke care and support that they need. As well as offering much needed additional capacity, the new provision will help us to make savings, ensure that more money can be spent supporting children and families. By way of example, it is estimated the current cost for a child with complex needs living in private provision is approximately £16,000 per week. The new accommodation, this would reduce to approximately £12 per week. This represents a saving of around £4,400 for £4,400 per child per week, and for 2 children living in the accommodation, this represents an annual saving of £454,000. And the full savings against costs are set out on page 51. This project not only makes good financial sense, but also delivers better outcomes for children with good quality and consistency of care by Suffolk County Council's in-house residential service. We recognise the high level of local interest in the future use of the Saxmundham site and are committed to ongoing transparent communication. And as part of this, I've already had conversations with the MP and have written to both her and the Town Council to offer to meet with them at any point during this project to hear their concerns or views. And we also recognise the importance of wider engagement with families, school leaders and the local community. So if Cabinet approves the proposals, an engagement plan will be developed to make sure the community views are heard as we progress to the detailed design and planning stage. Mr Chairman, I ask for Cabinet colleagues' support with this recommendation.
Thanks very much. Councillor Reid, you wish to come in?
Yes, thank you, Mr Chairman. And I'm very pleased to be able to support the creation and development of this new home for whom are the most needy and in our community. And I very much wanted to sort of highlight what Councillor Bennett said around about the issues being care closer to home. Very important. Savings are important, but not as important as outcomes. But I'm so pleased that they can be made. And it is key that we achieve better outcomes by by creating this school. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Chairman, thank you. First of all, I want to welcome this paper, and I will just say a few extra words on that theme in a moment. But second, I want to congratulate Councillor Bennett, because I have been trying to coach Councillor Bennett to pronounce the name of Saxmundham correctly, and she did it. She mentioned it 3 times in her speech, and she got it right twice.
Oh.
But Saxmundham has a long U, not a short U. But so well done, well done. But I don't want to make light of this. This is a serious thing. I very much welcome the development here. It's on a site which has a long history of being a school site, but is vacant at the moment. And it also enjoys the support, although I can't speak for them fully, of Saxmundham Town Council, because I have involved them in the development of this, and they have been sent necessary details so they can comment. This is a needed facility, especially in my area of East Suffolk, and I do support it. And further, I look forward, I hope, to some extra good news in due course when the part of the rest of the site might be developed as a special school. We need it again in my part of East Suffolk. The Department for Education has been helpful and generous here, and I thank them, and I thank them more in anticipation of further good news, which we are expecting in the fairly short term.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come in? No? Happy to open it up to others. Anyone wish to come in and comment? No? Saving it for later, no doubt. So can you just remind... Sorry? Yeah. Could you just remind Cabinet what we're being asked to decide today, please?
Yeah, so on page 47 of your papers, we're being asked to approve the development of the dual provision children's home in Saxmundham. Endorse match funding of 1.4 million, including a 285,000 land contribution to secure the Department of Education grant, to commit to the operational funding model demonstrating long-term sustainability, and to authorise the project team to proceed with planning, procurement and delivery in accordance with the proposed timeline and governance structure.
Lovely. Thanks very much for that. Cabinet, are we in favour of the recommendation? Can we have a show of hands, please? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item, which is the agenda item 8, the North Felixstowe and Brightwell Lakes New Primary School presumption recommendations, and I'll hand over to Councillor Andrew Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colleagues, I'm very pleased to share with you today the progress we've made on 2 new primary schools in Suffolk, both of which are planned to open in 2028. These schools will serve our growing new communities, with one located at Brightwell Lakes and the other at Trelawney Place in North Felixstowe. Both projects are currently in the design phase. Alongside the design work, officers have been progressing the process of identifying academy trusts to run the new schools. As you will know, when a local authority wishes to open a new school, we must follow the academy presumption process. For these new schools, this began in early 2025. We received a great deal of interest, with 11 applications submitted by a range of academy trusts. Following a rigorous evaluation, 3 trusts were shortlisted and interviewed in July last year by a panel of officers and local councillors. And I would like to thank the panel for the hard work and commitment during this evaluation process. The level of competition was extremely strong, and the panel was impressed by the quality, vision, and experience of all 3 trusts. After careful consideration, the panel agreed that the Children's Endeavour Trust should be the preferred trust to open and run the new school at Brightwell Lakes, and that Unity Schools Partnership should be the preferred trust to open and run the new school in North Felixstowe. the paper before you sets out in a more detail the strengths and experiences that led to these recommendations. Specifically, both trusts were also able to provide evidence that they had the skills and abilities necessary to establish a new school, as well as the resources to undertake and complete the work required within the timescale set out. Both trusts demonstrated their knowledge and experience of running schools. It is important to note that the final decision does not rest with the Council. Our role is to recommend our preferred trusts to the Department of Education and the Secretary of State. The ultimate decision will be made by the Regional Director. Meanwhile, the Department for Education has kept abreast of this presumption process as it has progressed. Therefore, today, I am seeking Cabinet's approval for 2 recommendations. First, that our preferred academy trusts are endorsed, specifically that Unity Schools Partnership is confirmed as the chosen trust for the new school in North Felixstowe, and that Children's Endeavour Trust is confirmed as the preferred trust for the new school at Brightwell Lakes. Second, that officers are authorised to notify the Secretary of State and the Regional Director of these preferred choices. Chairman, let me just turn to, before I invite my Cabinet colleagues, you invite my Cabinet colleagues to speak, I just wanted to say some words about Unity's recent decision to pause admission to the 6th form at Felixstowe School. The first thing to say is that despite suggestions to the contrary, our consideration about Unity's suitability to operate the new primary school in North Felixstowe is in no way connected to their decision over the 6th form. Some may have made that connection, even suggesting that we should not proceed with the recommendations before us because of this latest news. But I want to make absolutely clear that these decisions are related. To do so would be to disadvantage families of young children in Felixstowe, present and future, and Unity's reputation for delivering high-quality education outcomes for children must not be ignored. That said, whilst I understand Unity's position in relation to the 6th form, including the reality of there being just 38 students enrolled currently, I am surprised at how they have handled this announcement to parents and carers and other partners in the local education field. Suffolk County Council was not made aware of this position before it was announced, while parents were the first to be advised, and I understand the Trust followed all expected processes. It could have been more inclusive to communicate widely at the outset. Our officers have made it absolutely clear to both Trust and the Department for Education that we expect us to work together as a partnership to find suitable education pathways for all children affected by their decision. Importantly, we also intend to hold Unity true to its word that this is a pause in admission rather than a permanent position, and that they are actively and adequately preparing for future growth in housing in Felixstowe, which will create demand in the coming years. Most importantly, I want to reassure families and young people in Felixstowe that the alternative further education and training options available in Suffolk are excellent and will provide their needs. Suffolk County Council will continue to work with the Trust to find solutions and support residents. Back to the issue in hand. I commend this report to you all, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Happy to open it up to other Cabinet colleagues. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reid. I want to reiterate Councillor Reid's comments and know that there's been a great deal of frustration around the communication from Unity. And it's really disappointing in terms of timing, because this paper in front of us today should be a really good news story for Felixstowe. It's fantastic that we've got this provision coming forward, and I think it's important to separate the two issues and really concentrate on what we've got before us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come in at this stage? Come in later. Happy to open it up. Councillor Stringer, then Councillor Martin, then Councillor Byrne.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Bennett couldn't be here today. He might be getting washed away, who knows. But he sent the question in which I'll ask on his behalf. The new Felixstowe Primary School is not due to open its doors until September 2028, and nearly 3 years away. Given the damaging unilateral decision of Unity Schools Partnership to pause Felixstowe School's sixth form intake this year, and also given the fact that some 11 trusts applied to run the two new schools under consideration today, will the Cabinet take into account last week's vote of no confidence in Unity by Felixstowe Town Council and consider deferring the decision to allocate the operation of the new Felixstowe Primary School to Unity Schools Partnership, and to fully reconsider the matter in light of Unity's handling of the Felixstowe sixth form issue, as well as its performance at Felixstowe School in general? Thank you.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Councillor Stringer, on behalf of Councillor Bennett. And no, I won't be making that recommendation to Cabinet. We have, as I explained in what I've just said, we have been through a full process which has been very considered by all of the parties who are involved in supporting the development of a new school, and we have taken many things into account in making that assessment amongst the 11 schools that actually applied. I think there are important issues here about deciding on one thing and then deciding on another. It is not for us to decide about closing a sixth form college, at a school. I will ask Sarah Jane Smedmore to comment on the many factors that might influence a sixth form in being. What I can say is that the expected size of a sixth form would be 200, and there are currently 37 on roll. You will also be aware, Councillor Stringer, that there are plenty of examples where sixth forms have closed for exactly the same reasons. Where I think a school applies due process, then they're absolutely entitled to do so in those circumstances that prevail. So no, the answer is no. Thank you. But I will ask Sarah Jane to comment on other schools.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you for the question. So what I would say is that we're working very closely with the school and the trust also, and the school are working very closely with individual children who may be impacted, and we will do all we can to support in that situation as well. And I think just as Councillor Reid has described, it's for schools to be able to look at their total number of children overall and to plan accordingly, and that's what the situation is that we're faced with here.
I think the issue about the sixth form is slightly a red herring in a way. Many schools, including one of my schools in my division, has had to take similar action. But that was communicated well with the community, on behalf of the community, so there was no sudden shock and surprise. There was no councils taking votes of no confidence. I'm surprised, given the time that we've got, that we can't take a small amount of time to pause and reflect, because given the sixth form issue aside, the question asked is to reconsider its performance at Felixstowe School in general. And I thought that would be, if you've got a public outcry and public confidence is being tested and found wanting, surely a deep breath and a double check that we are about to make the right decision here, given that we have the time should be a course open to us. And equally, we need to make, good decisions here, and I believe we do normally, that can't be challenged. But if you're saying you're going to ignore its performance in that's what the portfolio holder just said, in terms of the question
Sorry, he didn't say he was ignore. He talked about the whole dual process that we've been through. Please let's not put words into his mouth.
The words, the words I were putting were the words that were in the question to you that you rejected. I get that, but in the last few weeks, the recommendation is now, the basis it's on is looking shakier in terms of public perception, and surely it's worth that time to look at.
Thank you. Well, I'm afraid I have to disagree with you. The process that has been undertaken for the whole presumption has been, in my view and in my colleagues' views, fully followed. And I'm happy with that, and I'm quite happy. I have no idea what a pause would add to that decision. So the answer is thank you, but no.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I won't repeat the questions asked by Councillor Stringer, although I do agree with everything that he has said. But I've got two questions for Councillor Reid. First of all, my guess is that there are very significantly more than 38 young people of sixth form age who are attending sixth form. They're just not attending it at Felixstowe School. Does that not reflect on the quality of education that Unity is able to provide, and in which case your claim that Unity was the best possible provider for the primary school falls down? And do you want to answer that one, and then I'll ask the second question?
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, and I think that's, forgive me, Councillor Martin, that's where we are back into the conflating piece, because you're then talking about creation of a primary school versus the quality of education at a sixth form, and I don't think we could do that in this case. What I can tell you is, and we talked about performance and quality, what I can tell you is that 7 or 8 years ago, Felixstowe School was, I think, close to special measures. And 2024, its Ofsted rating was found to be good. That's the whole school. If you take provision by Unity Trust through other primary schools in Felixstowe, you will find that the Ofsteds are good. Now, that's slipped a little bit in certain cases, and they have plans in place to improve, like we all do. Nothing is ever consistent all the time. So I think we just need to take on board the widest record of how the Unity Trust partnership has performed, not only in Felixstowe, but throughout the rest of Suffolk. But we've got to realise that they must make realistic decisions about what things are going to happen in the future. And you asked the question about, well, if they're not in Felixstowe, where are they? Well, they're at Suffolk 1. There are other places where there are more than maybe 15 A-level courses available, and there are 500 people rather than 37, and that actually matters when you're 16.
Your second question.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, my second question is that given the controversy that has been around this, and given parental perception of Felixstowe School, which is presumably one of the reasons why sixth formers have been going elsewhere, is there not a real danger that they will seek to find places at other primary schools anyway, rather than this one?
I don't think that there's a real danger, no. I think that that's people want to educate their younger kids close to home.
Councillor Bird, just to remind you, you get up to 3 questions.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I'll try and encapsulate them into one multi-part question. But obviously, yes, the context has already been set to a certain degree that Unity Schools Partnership also run the secondary school in Felixstowe called Felixstowe School. I've been concerned for a number of years that it's been a low aspiration, low ambition, low performing school. Just to correct you, Councillor Reid, it wasn't close to special measures, it went into special measures in 2017. It is out of that and now improving. For many years we've had several busloads of children leaving to have their education elsewhere. That's for the affluent parents who can afford the £1,050 a year bus fare to send them elsewhere. In a speech I made last week,
I am going to have to push you to a question.
I described it as educational apartheid. I will just also say I endorse what Councillor Foley, who's sitting in the audience today, said at that meeting last week when she said Felixstowe has lost faith in Unity Schools Partnership. My question, if I can put it in 4 parts to you, Councillor Reid. Question 1, do you agree that the decision to remove the sixth form will reverse the progress that has been made by Unity and by the secondary school in coming out of special measures? Secondly, do you agree that for a town the size of Felixstowe, it's absurd for it not to have post-16 educational provision? Thirdly, do you agree that Unity Schools Partnership handled this extremely badly in making the decision with no consultation with the Board of Governors or wider stakeholders or parents or the community? And fourth part of the question, I understand what you're saying, that you've got to follow due process and procedure, but do you feel that the decision today to award the contract to Unity Schools Partnership for the new primary school, in the light of what happened last week, will be seen as a slap in the face by the public of Felixstowe?
Well, can I answer
Councillor Reid.
4 questions? 4 minutes. So I think I'll try and answer the ones around communications and the slap in the face first, if I may. I mean, I can't judge for that in itself, because that is a very emotive expression, and I haven't had the chance to hear directly from anybody about that particular concern. But I believe that a town like Felixstowe, where there is housing development, should and could have a sixth form setting going forward. But that must be judged on what is actually happening on the ground and what the demand is, a perceived demand. And we have actually made it clear that we will be asking Felixstowe School to bear that in mind going forward. So we will be looking for them to pause rather than not to consider what comes down in the future. And I'd be very concerned if they didn't do that, and that's why we will hold them to the fire, and that's why we want to work with them. In terms of the comms around this and communicating with those stakeholders that are key to the school's success, you're right, and I've said that in my opening words. So yes, I agree, and there are lessons to be learned here, and it was disappointing. In terms of the overall, it doesn't change, in my mind, the suitability of Unity Trust to open a primary school, and I don't think that it compromises that model for them going forward, where they have a proven track record. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come in? No? I mean, I just want to really echo what Councillor Reid has said. You know, clearly, Councillor Bird, the process of the sixth form was not handled well. And, you know, and I think there are lessons to be learned, as he said, and as Councillor Reid said, and, you know, we will take that away. But it's about separating those two decisions that's before us today. So, Councillor Reid, can you just remind Cabinet what we're being asked to actually decide today, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, we're asking Cabinet to endorse the decision of the interview panel that Unity Schools Partnership is the Council's preferred trust to run the new school in North Felixstowe, and that Children's Endeavour Trust is the Council's preferred trust to run the new school on Brightwell Lakes. And second, Cabinet is asked to approve that officers advise the Secretary of State of the Council's preferred academy trust for the 2 primary schools and seek their approval and confirmation of the successful trusts.
Cabinet, are we in favour of that recommendation? Can we have a show of hands, please? Thank you very much. Okay, could I just ask someone tells Councillor Wiles we are finished with that item? Thank you. Okay, welcome back, Councillor Wiles. We'll now move on to agenda item 9, which is the Net Zero Carbon Report 24-25, and I'll hand over to Councillor Rout.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief in my introduction to this item, the Council's annual carbon budget report. We have, from the very outset of this work in 2019, been clear that the Council's investment in decarbonisation will be done on a invest to save basis, i.e. to reduce this Council's costs by more than its outlay. This is broadly reflective of changes we all make in our own homes, albeit on a much smaller scale, whether that's LED light bulbs, insulation or new heating systems. The work we've done here is rather more complicated, of course, but no less impactful. Last year, this council used just 60% of the gas and 65% of the electricity it used in 2019-20. At a time of volatile energy costs, this work has been essential in keeping our energy bills down. This all means that SCC's energy bills last year were over £4.5 million lower than they otherwise would have been. This work has used just £3.4 million of SCC's reserves, with the total cost of the work totalling about 14 million, comprising a further 3.4 million of grants and 7.8 million in government finance. In short, this means that in the vast majority of cases, savings have been achieved at no net cost at all, with savings exceeding the cost of borrowing. The savings have resulted from measures across the estate. The largest single measure has been the upgrade to LED lighting, with recent installations including the solar canopy Beacon House and Stowmarket Library. We're generating electricity equivalent to around 15% of consumption across all buildings, bringing down the amount we need to buy in. Thermal improvement and better controls means our buildings need less energy. The savings in the report include a 53% reduction in gas at Constantine House and a 33% reduction at Endeavour House. That progress continues. In the year to date, across the two buildings, we've seen a further 36% reduction in gas use. It is this general principle that will now drive our work in this arena, so we have a new, stronger recommendation today that any projects funded need to demonstrate in-year savings versus the cost of borrowing, i.e. they represent a net saving within the revenue budget. Our approach is not one of a moral crusade or chasing lofty targets. It is one built in financial reality and one that saves taxpayers' money year after year. More broadly, looking at the carbon budget in front of us, we're now revising our pathway and will be accepting that this council will cease to exist at the end of 2027-28. Thus, any reductions beyond that point are matters for other councils or council. As described in the report, most efforts have been focused on SCC's Scope 1 and 2 emissions because this is where we have the most control and where we see direct savings from investment. Scope 3 emissions are much harder to track and outside of our direct control. Mr. Chairman, I've got Andrew Cook in the room and Ned Harrison, a project manager in our environment strategy team, will be here shortly and they can assist me in picking up any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Happy to bring other Cabinet colleagues. Councillor Smith first, and then Councillor Cenci.
Just a brief comment from me, if I may. First, I do welcome what Councillor Rout has said, and the fact that our Investor Save schemes have been very, very useful indeed in providing real savings to the County Council's budget. So I thank him and his team for that, and I wish them well over the next 2 years. I do just want to clarify that today at Cabinet we are considering the carbon budget separate from the overall budget, but the monitoring officer's ruling last year was that at full council they have to be considered together rather than separately, and so I will, as I did last year, incorporate comments given to me by Councillor Rout into my speech on the 12th of February, and if and when there are questions that come from questions and comments from colleagues, I will do my best to answer them with Councillor Rout's help.
Thanks so much. Councillor Cenci.
Thank you. As someone that has never liked the term net zero, because I do not think that it describes exactly what Suffolk County Council's strategy is. And there's a lot of technical jargon in this report, so I just want to just very plainly and simply say why I support this paper and Councillor Rout. So this is about saving money, but it is also about strengthening resilience and cutting costs permanently in Suffolk and for the residents. Every pound we spend improving energy efficiency in public buildings, switching to cleaner, cheaper power, it is a pound that reduces long-term bills, and nobody could be against that, surely. It cuts fuel poverty, lowers demand on social care, and protects residents from volatile global energy prices. No one can be against that, surely. There's also the policies that create skilled jobs and attract private investment so that we can keep the supply chains locally here in Suffolk. Net zero policies at this authority is being done sensibly and is not about forcing lifestyle changes on residents. This is about common sense, financial management, not ideology. I support the recommendations in the paper.
Thank you very much. Councillor West.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And Councillor Cenci teased me up nicely when talking about common sense, because just to outline the Suffolk street lighting under Suffolk highways, you'll recall that some years ago we invested £9 million to upgrade over 42,000 lighting columns to LED. In this financial year alone, or the coming financial year, we will be spending £6 million less in revenue compared with what would have been the case if we'd have not made those changes, which is a substantial amount when we invested £9 million in the first place. If every investment got back that sort of return, it would be amazing. So not net zero, Councillor Cenci, a big net gain over the long term.
Councillor Rout, anything you want to add before I open it up?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chairman.
Happy to open it up to others. Councillor Stringer, then Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you. That teased me up very nicely. What I'd like to ask the portfolio holder, in your speech, that's really interesting, you mentioned the word saving, cost savings, 16 times. Yet within the paper, there is not a table that mentions any financial or monetary figure. There's not a graph, there's nothing. All it relies on is a term, net zero in terms of carbon. So can I ask, why are we not communicating the actual cost savings to this council about choosing to pursue, however badly termed, Councillor Cenci, the net zero in terms of carbon, but that is a pathway of going to a cleaner, cheaper future, and we should be saying that in this report. What's actually remarkable is that one saving alone that Councillor West mentioned. If we hadn't have had that saving, and I'm thinking about the paper we're about to go to, if we hadn't had that 6 million saving, there's a financial officer sitting there that would have already been writing to government saying we're in peril. So why are we not making that plain within this report?
Thank you, Councillor Stringer. I agree that it would be beneficial to have it more at the forefront, absolutely. But what I would say is that there is no standard way of presenting a carbon budget, which is how this is presented. I don't really like the term. I think really where we've got to is more of an energy savings report and budget. But it is termed a carbon budget, and that's how we present it. And looking at those nationally, they do take this sort of presentational style. In fact, ours is more extensive than many in terms of its content. So I recognise what you're saying, and I think for once on this matter we agree. I'd much rather focus on the finances of this. But in terms of the presentational style, I think this follows the norm.
Just one more question. Given the magnitude of the previous savings, why are we changing to making sure that any savings from the carbon budget need to be in year? So are we saying that if a scheme of reducing money and carbon emissions took 16 months to deliver, we'd now be saying no?
No, so I think you're misunderstanding the recommendation. So let's say a scheme costs, I don't know, £100,000 a year in borrowing to finance, then the saving must be £101,000 per year. We're not saying that the entire scheme must be repaid, just that the cost of repayment exceeds the cost of borrowing, so there's a net revenue budget saving per year.
Yeah, but you misunderstood me and I just misunderstood you, because is that then calculated over the years of that scheme, so it will deliver that saving each year, or does it? I took it to mean it has to deliver a cost saving above the cost of borrowing in its first year.
Yes, yes.
Right, and I'm suggesting that's a bit short-sighted.
We've, broadly speaking, achieved that anyway with most of the schemes that we've done, but not in all of them. But I think given the short life cycle that this council has left through to April 2028, it is difficult to make decisions around buildings that may not be in public ownership, particularly given we've made a lot of the decisions affecting sort of low-hanging fruit, as you would term it. I think there are some more long-term decisions that are perhaps best left to a future authority or authorities to decide whether or not they want to retain those buildings. So I think we're looking more at the near term, but there's still plenty we can do.
Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Given the short period of time that this council has to exist, would it not be better for us to leave the following council with a progress report which is on track to deliver net zero in the time in which we are intending to do it? If I can refer you to figure 2 on page 65. I mean, we've made some really fantastic progress on this since 2019, but it's pretty much flatlined from 23 onwards. So wouldn't it not be necessary to put more capital investment in order to achieve a continuing reduction in emissions rather than just resting on our laurels?
Well, first of all, I think we have a very different definition of flatlined, but it is still decreasing. It gets more difficult and it gets more expensive, and I think we've always said that this should be done on a spend-to-save basis. So there are grossly irresponsible things I'm sure we could do at vast taxpayers' expense that does not present a return on investment to get to an arbitrary target by a certain date. But we're not doing that. We've always said it will be on a spend-to-save basis. And I think it's only right and proper that a newly elected council determines what its pathway is. And 2030 is an ambitious target. I think you've seen in West Suffolk, for example, what do they call themselves there? Somebody remind me. Rainbow Coalition or Progressive Alliance decide that 2030 is unachievable for them and to actually push that target back. So I think it is a decision for a new council. We'll continue in the way that we have been pursuing this to date, which has delivered real financial savings to the taxpayer.
Thank you. Councillor Ladd.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is fairly similar, actually, but I just want to make a comment, if you allow me to. As I was, as chairman of the PDP in 2019, I think this council has made huge progress in reaching their strategic aim of net zero operations by the end of 2030. And I'd like to thank everyone who was involved in that. It's easy, I think, to remember where we were pre-2019. And so huge progress has been made. I really just want to ask the Cabinet member, and I think he's already answered it really, is that how confident are you that we will, obviously with LGR coming down the track, how confident are you that we can continue this progress?
I'm very confident that we can continue to make progress. I'm confident that we can continue to make progress on a spend-to-save basis as well. Whether a new authority or authorities can reach net zero by 2030 is far more ambitious. But I think the focus on Scope 1 and 2 emissions and not Scope 3 is very sensible.
Councillor Fleming, you and
Yes, thank you very much. And I too welcome the commitment in this report that decarbonisation should result in cost savings. And I welcome the work that's been done to achieve this. But I'd like to make a couple of suggestions going forward with the carbon programme.
So can I just say this is questions, please?
Yes. Will the Cabinet and the members responsible for the decarbonisation programme please consider the following 2 questions? Number 1, reconsider working to National Grid's decarbonisation targets, particularly the the 2030 target because they are widely accepted now of being both unachievable and undesirable. And number two, reconsider the commitment of the Council to electricity purchasing through the 100% renewable energy contract administered through REGO, which is the Renewable Energy Guarantees of Origin programme. REGO does not include nuclear power, which is probably the cleanest source of power that we have at our fingertips, and it does include biofuels, which include wood burning conducted at Drax, which is highly environmentally unsustainable and damaging. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it's very, very easy to answer both of these. I think it's yes to both. So, in fact, we have reconsidered the 2030 target because we're only looking through to 27, 28. I would remind Councillor Fleming that this is just a target for the Council's internal emissions, nothing external. We're not talking about the UK or Suffolk. That's something entirely different. SPSL, Suffolk Public Sector Leaders, does some work around that. But this carbon budget refers only to our own emissions. That pathway we're only looking through to 2027, 28, so not 2030, and only on a spend to save basis. In terms of electricity purchasing, I completely agree with the view around REGO. It's frustrating that in sort of the world of carbon accounting that nuclear is thought bad and anything under REGO is thought good, and therefore your trajectory is lower if you take that into account. The decision around the renewal of that energy tariff doesn't sit with me. It will sit with Councillor Smith as Cabinet Member for Finance, but I'm sure he, as I and you would, when that does fall for renewal, would certainly consider a tariff that includes nuclear, and even more so if that proves to be cheaper than our current tariff.
Councillor Lockington.
Thank you, Chair. In your report and in your speech, you mentioned about reduction from buildings and so on. I just wonder, do we still have the same amount of buildings that occupy the same amount of space as we did when we first started to count? Or have we shrunk, for example, rented out some of our offices and so on? Because that would then mean our budget go down, but not because we've reduced it, but because we have less building space we occupy. So I don't know if there's anything like that.
There certainly will have been some disposals of some buildings. I think Councillor Stuart Bird has left us, but there's one famous building in Felixstowe that we've disposed of, for example. The larger buildings are retained. I'll bring in Ned, if he's with us, just to say how disposals are accounted for.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, so it is an issue. You're right, it will impact the footprint. There's other issues that are similar to that as well. So like libraries, for example, which are going to be coming in, they're technically scope 3, will be coming back in scope 1 and 2. We do try to account for this to prevent giving a misleading picture by essentially what we do, where there's a change in the total scope that's covered. We backdate the figures from now, so we're comparing like with like, so we're not comparing to a council in the past that had more buildings. I emphasise the word try there because I think it's a large and complex estate. I'm not going to guarantee that there aren't some buildings that have gone through, but it's not a significant factor in it because we have checked this. The larger buildings, we proxy the energy backwards effectively.
Thank you. I haven't got any other hands up. Yes. Councillor Robinson.
Here we go. Press the right-hand button. Thank you very much, ladies. Thanks for helping me. I don't really understand the figures in 17, 18. Could you go through them? If I read them, it looks a bit like you spent 13 million in 7 years and saved 4.
Sorry, you don't understand the figures where, Councillor Martin?
18, section 18.
Paragraph 18. Which bit don't you understand? Sorry. I could read it to you, but I don't think that would help with your understanding of it.
I'm trying to understand what has actually been saved, what
So,
has actually been spent,
okay,
and what has actually been saved.
So, in terms of savings, detailed there at the end of the paragraph is the £4.8 million. I said earlier that we're saving over £4 million annually on our energy bills compared with where they would be ordinarily. In terms of what's been spent, there was a capital budget set to one side of 12.8 million. The entirety of that hasn't been spent. What has been spent is 3.4 million from the council's reserves, 3.4 million from government grants, and around £7 million worth of borrowing. So around a £14 million total. But that is saving us over £4 million per year. Discounting grants, therefore, you would look at that about a payback period of about 2.5 years.
So we've spent 14 and we've saved 28.
No, because those 4.5 won't have all come on stream in year one, so it's been progressive. So that the £4.5 million of annual savings will have, of course, accrued over that period since 2019. So to the point where we are now saving £4.5 million per year now, but we wouldn't have been saving £4.5 million per year in 2020 because all of the work hadn't been done.
Okay, thank you very much. So, if you don't mind, second question. We clearly made a saving.
Yes.
A very large part of the net zero is in the supply chain, which, if I've understood correctly, has been excluded, broadly speaking. So what targets have been set on procurement? If we've demonstrated we can save, what targets have been set on our suppliers to save?
That's a very good question. And scope 3, which is those things that you procure from elsewhere effectively. So scope 1 is in-house, scope 2 is the energy we purchase and use, scope 3 is via suppliers. And there it is more challenging because we've got something called a climate change commercial ask, which I have personally some mixed views about because you don't want to be too onerous on smaller Suffolk companies and make it too difficult for them to do business with the county council. So really what we are taking is more of an advisory role to try and work with those companies to show how they can make similar savings going forward. So you're right, there are savings that companies could be making, but we can't force them to make them. And I think nor should we really discriminate against small providers because they don't have the wherewithal necessarily to make those savings as quickly as we have. But you're right to highlight that the work we've done to date has delivered large savings and a very short payback period.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I haven't got any other hands up, so Councillor Rout, can you just remind Cabinet what we're being asked to decide today, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if Cabinet could turn their attention to page 61, there's 3 recommendations there under items 2, 3 and 4. I'll paraphrase them, but please do familiarise yourself with them. So it's to approve the carbon budget, to agree the interim target to the end of 2027-2028, and then importantly, under item 4, to affirm the general principle that investment in decarbonisation measures must show in-year savings, i.e. the projected cost avoidance exceeds the cost of borrowing.
Thanks very much. So, Cabinet, as per the recommendation on page 61 of our papers, are we all in favour? Can we have a show of hands, please? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll keep going. We'll move straight on to agenda item 10, the revenue budget 26-27 and the capital programme 26-29. And I'll hand over to Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman and colleagues. It was commendable of Councillor Rout to be so succinct in his opening remarks. I'm afraid you must not expect that of me today. Because you have in front of you in the Cabinet paper, together with appendices A to H, details of the proposals for the financial year commencing on the 1st of April. Now, to ensure the accuracy of the many thousands of words and all the accompanying tables packed full of figures is a complex and demanding task. For me, the process started last June, but for our officers, notably Louise Ainsley and Andrew Philby, their efforts began even earlier. Indeed, the process is never ending because as one financial year ends, papers have to be prepared for the auditor's perusal and the outturned figures have to be compiled and checked in time for the May Cabinet meeting, just as the first few facts, figures, ideas and aspirations begin to be formed for the following year's budget. The only difference in future will be that the next budget cycle, 12 months away, will be the last for this authority, because local government in the form of either one or three unitary authorities will have their first year's budget set by the to-be-elected shadow authority. However, the detail of how all that works, or will work, is still to be established. We all know that financially times continue to be tough. The fair funding review from the government actually left Suffolk £3.5 million worse off, and that shortfall has had to be covered from reserves, exacerbating the existing difficult position as our reserves are now falling close to what our Section 151 officer regards as the statutory minimum. So although I said this in my Cabinet speech last year, and I quote here, we've been helped to an important degree by the fact that this current year's budget, that's 24-25, has been consistently on target. I can't, I'm afraid, make that statement again this year. I don't doubt the continuing efforts of staff throughout this council to try to remain within the preset budget. Now I'm talking about the 25-26 financial year, but we're forecasting an overspend, which I sincerely hope won't go above £15 million or above 2% of total budget spending. I now need to state plainly that next year, that's the financial year starting on the 1st of April 2026, Suffolk County Council must remain within the agreed budget, which I trust will be agreed at full council on the 12th of February, just 16 days away. We're no longer in a position to cope with future overspends. It really is as simple as that. We know that the designated schools grant will swell further to an estimated, quote, negative reserve figure of around £250 million. That is, in plain language, a very large overdraft, which has to be funded by borrowing, which is a charge on the revenue budget. And the interest cost on that next year could exceed £9 million. The overdraft is built up and is increasing because of the huge, seemingly unstoppable surge in demand for educational health and care plans, which, when established, have to be thoroughly reviewed each and every year. And then there's further additional spending to ensure we meet our statutory duties towards young people with SEND, special educational needs and disabilities. We hope to hear soon, but it's time and time again delayed, what the government proposes to do to help local authorities such as us. Government extended the statutory override, which legally excludes the dedicated schools grant deficit from our balance sheet figures, right up until the 31st of March 2028, the very day that this authority ceases to exist. But that's only step one. We need to hear of bold plans and changes to eligibility rules and regulations to have any chance of this cost area avoiding sending most upper tier authorities on the journey to Whitehall to ask the government for exceptional financial support. A handful of authorities have already had to apply, and over the course of the remainder of our existence, it is possible that Suffolk County Council might have to join that queue. We don't want this to happen, but to avoid it, we need bold, expansive, and ambitious reforms to this system to reset the proper equilibrium between central and local government. And here may I ask you all to cross your fingers, and please keep them crossed, in the hope that first we'll hear from the government's proposals soon, and second, that they are sufficiently comprehensive to reset the system. If they're not, whatever form of unitary government we'll have in Suffolk, will be dogged from day one, yes, literally day one, by financial uncertainty, which will undermine moves to plan with confidence for the future. Our SEND and EHCP figures have benefited from the huge extra investment we have made. For far too long, we were in the bottom quartile of national performance figures when compared to others. But there is good news to come, not announced today, but by March, it will be evident that our investment in staff and other resources is paying off, and the underlying trend is moving very positively. And that turnaround has been accomplished by first-class leadership from my cabinet colleagues and the sheer graft of senior staff, but also due to all staff who've been working in this area, not least the 94 extra posts we authorised some 2 years ago. So in anticipation of that, I say well done, but we do need to recognise this forthcoming welcome news has been made at the cost of diminishing reserves and our overall financial position weakening considerably. That is why I have to state now very clearly that the budget proposals for 26-27 must be kept within. And I look to staff at all levels to play their part to ensure adherence to the budget is achieved in the forthcoming financial year. And this warning applies not just to our CYP colleagues, but to all of our directorates. The head of financial services and I will be watching the financial figures constantly and vigilantly, but success needs the total buy-in of each and every one of us to play our individual part in ensuring adherence to budgets on a daily basis throughout Suffolk County Council and constant vigilance about spending on the services our council supplies. Now, I'm glad to say that no frontline budget cuts are proposed this year. Frankly, as there's precious little left to cut without directly affecting the level and quality of our statutory services, as all areas have been examined rigorously again and again every year since 2010. The system has almost nothing left to give in savings, but efficiencies can and must still be found. And adult social care services have led the way in transforming their services, aided by the Cassius software system and the careful and appropriate use of artificial intelligence. They have overachieved on their transformational savings target this year and are confident of meeting their financial targets in the forthcoming year. The Children and Young People's Directorate really must do the same to keep us on an even keel, and I have confidence that they will achieve their financial targets after a year of very considerable administrative and financial reorganisation. Those system improvements now need to be actively converted into pound coins, and literally millions of those pound coins. I haven't mentioned so far other areas of our work, but I do want to say a few words about highways. Just about everyone in Suffolk uses our roads and has strong opinions about them, as most certainly my parish councils do. In my area, travel is being blighted by the scale of roadworks being undertaken alongside the development of Sizewell C. My journey to Ipswich, which I make several times each week, is now a pretty miserable one, and I know it won't improve much in the next year, and indeed it's highly likely to get worse before it starts to get better. I have only last week seen a series of potholes open on the A12, that road so important for most of East Suffolk, and certainly for Sizewell. Just 8 days ago, I travelled along the A12 near the village of Little Glenham along an intact road. But the very next morning, that same road had developed a dozen fairly large potholes which motorists were swerving to avoid. Now, they will be fixed, but halting the traffic to do the work on a busy main road is neither simple nor straightforward. Traffic management systems have to be planned and put in place for the safety of the crews while they patch these holes. And it's never easy to guarantee that patching will be successful in the winter months of January and February. So it may be necessary to revisit these sites and the repairs when the weather is warmer in May, which will lead to more necessary traffic control arrangements and more disruption. And all of this has to be planned within a strictly limited financial budget, where there is clearly not enough funding available to do all that's required. But necessary prioritisation will mean that the A12 potholes will be fixed in a safe and timely manner. I'm aware that's not always the case everywhere, to the consequent frustration of motorists and road users. But please understand that within the constraints of road safety, this council has to keep within its highways budget and simply cannot do everything we would like it to do. That is the truth, and I do ask for understanding and acceptance of this fact from councillors and more widely from members of the public. Although we will be spending a net £850 million on our services throughout Suffolk next year, I know that that is not enough. An extra £150 million to allow spending to rise to £1 billion would be desirable, but is plainly unachievable. The government has made it clear that they expect us to maximise the income from the sources which we can leverage. Apart from fees and charges for our services, this income mainly comes from the council tax precept. Our proposal, which I make reluctantly, is to raise the rate by 4.99%, being 2% towards our social care costs and 2.99% towards all other council costs. In an ideal world, I would not want to do this, and I remember the heady 4 years in the 2010s when this council froze its level of council tax for 4 consecutive years. But times are very different now, and we would be foolish to flout the instructions of central government and run the very real risk of having some of those government grants we receive reduced, which is a distinct possibility. But I apologise that I have to make this proposal, which I know will cause concern and anxiety to many of those families throughout Suffolk who are jams, people and families who in these challenging times are just about managing. Chairman, I finish where I started. Financially, times are hard. Our reserves no longer give us the cushion we've relied upon in past years, and the future outlook cannot be described as anything other than difficult. But I believe the budget proposed, commented upon just 2 weeks ago by a whole-day meeting of the Scrutiny Committee, and now to go forward to be debated by all members of the County Council, is the best that can be proposed in these difficult times. It's imperative that once set, the financial constraints imposed by the new budget are recognised and kept within by all of our directorates. Only then can confidence grow that this County Council will proudly hand over its duties and responsibilities to its successor body, or successors. Yes, we've had to face challenges, but we've had many successes too. And the legacy of 50+ years of this County Council will be a financially positive one, as our beloved Suffolk contemplates a different kind of local government administration. I hope fervently that solution for our future will be a one Suffolk Council, which is best placed to deliver savings and provide value for money to all, businesses included, and certainly not forgetting those jams, those who are just about managing, who deserve the brightest and best future we can help them achieve. Chairman, with confidence, I ask for colleagues' support for these budget proposals for the forthcoming financial year.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Councillor Hopfensperger, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the 2026-27 financial year, the proposed budget for adult social care
is £382.3 million. This is the amount we expect to spend across the full range of ASC services next year, including support for older residents and for people with learning disabilities, autism, and mental health needs. This represents an increase of 9.2 million or 2.5% compared with the adjusted 2025-26 budget, once changes in government grant are taken into account. Within that 9.2 million uplift, we are managing cost pressures totalling 31.8 million, which are balanced by targeted savings of 22.5 million. These cost pressures fall into two main areas: inflation in care costs and the rising demand for our services. Turning first to inflation, over the coming weeks we'll be discussing revised care rates with the Suffolk Care Association for residential and nursing care, home care and other externally commissioned services. We are planning for an inflationary increase of 16 million, offset by a 2 million increase in customer contributions. This reflects the national living wage rising by 4.1% in April. While many care workers already earn slightly above that level, it is essential that we protect pay differentials, otherwise we risk losing staff to sectors such as retail. The second major cost pressure comes from demand. Suffolk's population continues to age, and if we took no action, demand-related costs could rise by an estimated 17.8 million next year. This would result from both a growing number of people needing support and an increase in the complexity of their care needs. However, we are taking action. Our transformation programmes, People First and Independent Lives, are designed to manage and reduce demand through greater enablement, promoting independence, and using more cost-effective digital solutions through the Cassius programmes. Thanks to these and other initiatives, our intention is to fully offset the 17.8 million cost pressure. These programmes have already delivered £84.5 million worth in savings since their launch 8 years ago, and they are on track to exceed this year's £15 million savings target. Overall, ASC is proposing £22.5 million worth in savings for 2026-27. The largest contribution is the 17.8 million of mitigation from the transformation activity. Of the remaining 4.7 million, 4.2 million results from changes to the employer contribution rates in the local government pension schemes, which is a saving applied across the whole council. There is also a cross-council savings programme entitled Fit for the Future, which includes a corporate review of business support services, customer access, digital inclusion, and change delivery and insurance. Adult social care's notional contribution to this work is 0.2 million. Finally, £0.3 million worth of savings will come from reducing third-party spend. A key factor here is ending the block contract with Shaftesbury, allowing costs to be shared more fairly between health and social care partners. To conclude, Mr. Chairman, adult social care is the largest area of council expenditure, and we take our responsibility for managing this budget extremely seriously. We are mindful that resources are always limited, and that we can never do everything we would like to do. However, I believe these proposals strike the right balance, supporting and valuing our care sector, recognising the financial pressures our providers face, but also meeting our statutory obligation to set the balanced budget for the council. I would like to add my thanks to not only all that work for Suffolk County Council, but for the care sector in general, whom I know work extremely hard supporting our residents in continuing difficult circumstances. Thank you.
Councillor Bennett, do you want to go next? Then Councillor Reid.
Thank you very much. So here to present the budget for children and young people services, and we're proposing a budget of £227 million for the 26-27 financial year. As Councillor Smith has mentioned, we are currently looking at overspend this year, an overspend of £10.1 million, and this is largely driven by the cost of care placements. Like many other councils, we're seeing more children with complex needs entering the system at a time when the external care market is very tight and very expensive. And with this in mind, the 26-27 budget includes £15.4 million of cost pressures, which takes into account this overspend, but also factors in an element for future demand and inflation. Our strategy to managing these costs long term is to build more of our own internal provision for solo and dual placements, as we have discussed earlier today. It takes time to get these properties registered with Ofsted and up and running, but it is an effective way to make sure we keep our children closer to home and reduce the average cost per placement. This time last year, I told you that we were at the start of a root and branch transformation, and this year I can say we're right in the middle of it, and our transformation work is well underway in Suffolk. We're moving forward with the Family First programme, which is a UK government initiative designed to transform children's social care by strengthening support for families and improving multi-agency collaboration. The additional costs in this financial year for Families First are forecast to be £0.7 million, which includes partner secondment costs from health and police, as well as new posts to support changes required to systems and backfilling of posts as the service transforms from one model to another. The total full-year cost of the new structure is included in the budget, and this budget pressure is realised in 26-27 and has been limited to the £2.3 million grant that formed part of this year's settlement. This restructure will not only help us achieve the aims set out by government, but will also ensure the Directorate addresses the concerns raised in the ILACS report, specifically within our MASH and leading care teams. We've identified £12.2 million of savings, of which half, £6.5 million, comes from corporate-wide redesigns. £3 million will come from our work with Empower, which helps us ensure we have the right care packages in place for children and make sure we're working efficiently with these. In short, this budget looks to manage high demand while fixing the issues identified in recent inspections, and I'd like to thank the finance team for their help in getting the numbers right, and our staff and Director of Children's Services for continuing to manage a very challenging workload. Thank you.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My areas of responsibility within CYP include education, learning, inclusion, school travel and schools. And together these services support our ambition to give every child in Suffolk the best possible start in life. And as I said to scrutiny, this work comes at a significant cost. Councillor Bennett has covered the overspend and the proposed increase in budget. Part of that, of course, falls to my part of the Directorate. Focusing on SEND transformation, important progress has been made in this area. And while rising demand continues to place pressure on the systems, last year we published a detailed needs assessment and improvement to strengthen provision, improve consistency and deliver better outcomes. And there are clear indicators of positive progress with partners across health, schools and the Suffolk Parent Carer Forum. We do have robust plans in place to continue this improvement. However, we do realise that it is not yet being felt consistently by all families, and that remains our key priority. As a result, the draft budget on this side of the Directorate includes an additional £1.5 billion to support the timely production of education healthcare plans, as Councillor Smith mentioned earlier, and to fund activities unlimited, providing respite support for families. Homes to school transport remains another area of cost pressure, particularly for children with SEND. Inflationary pressures on routes not recently tendered total 1.6 million, while increasing demand for SEND transport is forecast to require 3.6 million, with a further 0.2 million from mainstream demand. And on my side of the Directorate as well, we continue to build in savings through service redesign, including savings in transport, early years and service improvement across inclusion, education and learning. And before I close, I want to make one final point, which we have said on a number of occasions over the last 2 months. We are still awaiting, like councils across the country, for long overdue national SEND reforms. The government accepts that the current system isn't financially sustainable, but until the detail and timetable are clear, long-term planning is made harder and costs do keep rising. We will keep pushing for clarity, and in the meantime, we're doing the right thing locally to support children and families. Mr. Chairman, the proposed CYP budget ensures we can meet current demand while planning responsibly for the future. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor West, you next.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just talking about the revenue budget, first of all, obviously the operational highways revenue budget is fairly limited compared with everybody else's. The majority of the spend that people see on our highway network is capital, and I'll come to that in a moment, but just a few headlines on the revenue side. The next financial year will be the first full year of the second full year of the Gullwing Bridge, and managing and maintaining that will come in at around £1.5 million. That's within our revenue budget. Obviously that includes staffing, operational on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week, as well as the energy and operational costs. But I think that everybody can agree that's been a huge plus for the people of Lowestoft, and we've played more than our part, along with the government funding, obviously, to make sure that that has been a success. We mentioned earlier, or I mentioned earlier, the saving in streetlights on the revenue budget, which has been accrued over a period of time, meaning that we now spend £6 million less than we otherwise would have done before all the changes were implemented. That's also a good thing. And I should also note at this moment our continued thanks to our floods team, who have completed all the Section 19 reports with the additional money that they were given from government, and we've obviously got some commuted sums set aside to address some of the issues that they've been bringing forward. But as Councillor Smith sort of alluded to earlier, spending on highways is never as much as we would like, because we would always like to spend unlimited money. It is just worth saying, just repeating a few comments I made in the press recently, that contrary to what the Department for Transport has recently said, we spend every single penny that they give us to spend on our highways and more. In the last 2 years, we've received from the DFT £78 million, and we've spent £87 million. Although because we brought some of that forward, they didn't rate us, as we believe, in the correct way, because they believe we spend money on something other than highways. That's not the case. We've obviously written to them and have had no reply, but we await that reply with interest. Worth repeating as well, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've spent an additional £10 million from our capital through borrowing on footways, £10 million for footways, £10 million for additional drainage. Both of those pots of money are pretty much at the end, with just a few schemes left to do that were left over. But again, that's been a huge success. That's money that people wanted to see spent on the highway network, and has delivered improvements well and over and above that the money from DFT would have provided for on those two things. So whilst I'd love to see even more money from Councillor Smith, 2 seats away from me, and he's smiling, on highways, I'm realistic, because I realise the pressures that sit on my colleagues to either side in those big spend services for vulnerable people. But I can rest assured everybody here that every penny that we do get to spend on our highways, the team across all those disciplines get absolute value for money and do everything they can to improve the state of the highway network in Suffolk.
Thanks. And next up was Councillor Rout.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And having sat where Councillor Smith now sits, first can I commend Councillor Smith and the officer team that he works with on such a strong budget delivered under the most challenging circumstances. I was unable to attend scrutiny, but understand that there was an informative and productive, if long, discussion that took place. I don't intend to revisit those. However, it's worth touching on the areas that fall within my area of responsibility as Cabinet Member for Devolution, Local Government Reorganisation and NSIPs. We have a clear duty to ensure future financial sustainability, and while I won't talk about LGR at length today, I think it's worth noting that a move to a single unitary authority in Suffolk makes abundant financial sense for our county. Our One Suffolk proposal, if the government gives it the green light, would save the county nearly £40 million a year, money that would be used to enhance local services and keep council tax as low as we possibly can. Therefore, should the government decide in favour of One Suffolk, I hope that future Cabinet members for Finance will benefit from better sleep and a stronger financial prognosis. The impact on people's services is one of the key reasons why I've long advocated for local government reorganisation, and moreover why one unitary authority is the only option for Suffolk that makes financial and logical sense. It would entail no disaggregation of essential services and a smarter, simpler and better option for our residents. The paper recognises that delivering local government reorganisation will require collaborative resources and investment across Suffolk's existing councils. Such transformational change will require investment in 2026-27 prior to the shadow council elections in May of 27. Learning from other areas that have implemented LGR shows that this is shared between the existing councils. The paper acknowledges that the County Council does not have the capacity within its 2026-27 budget or its usable reserves for this investment. Therefore, it's looking to apply the flexible use of capital receipts and use available and uncommitted capital receipts to support the transition costs of LGR on the basis that these are invested to save costs to facilitate the local management of budget pressures, a key objective of LGR. Last June, Cabinet agreed to transfer £1.9 million from the Risk Reserve to the Corporate Priorities Reserve to enable the Council to prudently and proactively plan for LGR and devolution. Over 2025-26 and 2026-27, this provides flexibility to be drawn down as the devolution priority programme's deadlines and key government milestones and decisions are made clear. For devolution, we were recently pleased to receive confirmation from the Minister that the mayoral capacity fund has been increased by £500,000 to £1.5 million in 2025-26. I think this is recognition of the work already undertaken across Suffolk and Norfolk to prepare for the establishment of a combined county authority and, in time, a new directly elected mayor. To move over to nationally significant infrastructure projects, I'd like to say that the multitude of existing national infrastructure projects that Suffolk is currently exposed to, whilst the number is unprecedented and creating significant workload for our team, this, in the vast majority, is covered by planning performance agreements with developers. But the NSIP workload will only grow, likely exponentially, with numerous speculative solar applications coming down the tracks. The financial concern is that solar applications may not provide contributions to the level which we've previously experienced. We will continue to argue for adequate financing, but they are more difficult to negotiate with. With my environmental hat on, regarding our efforts to decrease the council's energy bills and our long-term ambitions, this is currently under review with LGR on the table, but as we heard in the prior paper, we've reduced costs in recent years and continue to explore opportunities to save through returns on investment. As I said earlier, this work since 2019 has seen us save £4.5 million on our energy bills annually compared to where they would otherwise be. I will just finish by just mentioning very briefly, Mr. Chairman, the local nature recovery strategy, which this council has led on with Norfolk. There's real opportunity there for economically protecting and enhancing our local environment as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Chambers, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we gather to discuss the 26-27 budget and our forward-looking programme. It's clear that Suffolk is at a turning point. We're operating in a landscape of significant financial pressure, with roughly 77% of our budget dedicated to the vital support of adult social care and children's services. The remaining 23% of our budget is a catalyst for the future. This is where we're driving innovation, connectivity and housing that will redefine our infrastructure and secure Suffolk's economic resilience for the long term. Let's start with a service every resident relies on. Waste. This year marks the beginning of some major changes to our waste system. This change is a total strategic shift, and Suffolk will see the introduction of weekly food collections, which we anticipate will remove up to 25% of residual waste. These changes will also see paper and card separated and handled separately. Turning to a transport strategy, our focus is on connectivity that fuels economic growth. An example of this prioritisation of economic growth is evident on the A12 corridor as a critical economic engine. Our strategy centres on the £63 million infrastructure package designed to accommodate the construction of Sizewell C, among other major energy infrastructure projects, as the UK transitions towards clean energy. The A12 serves as a primary strategic corridor for the energy coast. In passenger transport, we've secured a monumental £26 million in government funding through to 2029. For the upcoming financial year, we are investing over £8.8 million specifically to enhance our bus networks. What does this mean for the person at the bus stop? It means sustaining the 40+ enhanced routes we've launched since 2024, maintaining Sunday services and modernising our infrastructure with new accessible shelters and real-time passenger information. We're also using this funding as a springboard to work with operators on zero-emission electric fleet, ensuring our town centres are cleaner and healthier for everyone. Our planning strategy is built on the dual pillars of sustainable growth and resource security. Central to this is the Suffolk Minerals and Waste Local Plan, which ensures we maintain at least a 10-year land supply for the essential minerals needed to build new homes and schools planned for our county. While the current plan was adopted in 2020, we've recently begun with the groundwork for a new local plan that will set long-term strategy for the next 20 years, ensuring Suffolk remains net self-sufficient in waste management through to 2046. Crucially, we're not planning in isolation. We're working closely with Suffolk's district and borough councils, who are currently developing new local plans to meet significantly increased housing targets. Increased targets, mandatory annual housing targets for Suffolk have recently increased from approximately 3,000 to 5,000 homes per year. And infrastructure delivery, we're collaborating deeply with these authorities to ensure that infrastructure from roads to schools to waste services required to support this scale of growth is planned and delivered in tandem with new housing. Finally, I want to talk about our housing joint venture, Edmundum Developments. This is a 50-50 partnership with Lovell Partnerships. It's more than a property deal. It is a 15-year commitment to deliver 2,800 high-quality, sustainable homes for the people of Suffolk. I'm thrilled to report that we're halfway through the construction of Newmarket at the former St Felix Middle School site. This development, known as Astley Place, is taking shape. It will provide 50 energy-efficient homes featuring triple glazing and air source heat pumps as standard. Construction began in May 2025, and I'm pleased to share that we expect to open the first show home and marketing suite in early this year. In addition to our progress in Newmarket, we've achieved a major milestone in Mildenhall, where we've successfully gained planning consent for a significant hybrid application of land west of Mildenhall. This ambitious project is set to deliver up to 1,300 new homes, a primary school and an 80-bed adult care facility, all integrated with the Mildenhall hub. This follows our recent success in West Row, where plans for 100 new homes were also signed off late last year. Whether it's the bins on our streets, the buses on our roads, or the new communities rising in Newmarket and Mildenhall, our strategy is clear. We're investing in the foundations of Suffolk life, and we're building for the future, and we're building for the environment, and most importantly, we're building for the residents. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Councillor Wiles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to talk about the situation from my own portfolio, which is public health and public protection. The Fire and Public Safety Directorate, which costs 34.4 million to deliver, we achieved this through a wide range of positive outcomes, including emergency response, prevention and protection activities, trading standard functions and emergency planning. Alongside inflationary pressures, we also seen increased demand for our services, reflecting the essential role we play in keeping our communities safe. Despite these challenges, our Directorate has developed a robust recovery plan to help manage the pressures experienced this year. The plan has already contributed to a reduction in financial pressures through a combination of efficiency mitigations, income generation and cost recovery measures. These actions are having a helpful impact, and we anticipate a further improvement to our end-of-year financial position. In addition, the Joint Emergency Planning Units and Trading Standards are both expected to come in slightly under budget. Trading Standards in particular is entering a collaborative pilot with Norfolk County Council to share costs, which should support further financial stability going forward. These steps form part of our ongoing commitment to deliver effective, value-for-money services while continuing to build a safer community for Suffolk. Moving on to public health and communities, which has a current net cost of £45.2 million to deliver its full range of responsibilities, with £36.2 million funded through the 25-26 Public Health Grant and supported by the Public Health Grant Reserves. We're forecasting a balanced budget for 25-26. This position is being achieved through a planned drawdown of reserves and continued tight management of cost pressures, ensuring the Directorate remains financially stable while delivering significant outcomes for Suffolk. Programmes funded through the Public Health and Communities contribute directly to the Council's wider ambitions for prevention, early intervention and stronger communities. Public health service supports healthier lives, reduce preventable illnesses and strengthen health protection across the county. The drawdown I mentioned from the reserves is for the 0 to 19 Healthy Child service and reflects earlier commitments to support the service during a period of review. This support will continue. The additional funding provided in 24-25 and 25-26 ensures service continuity while underlying cost pressures were examined in detail. Looking to 26-27, Public Health and Communities planned expenditure is £48.4 million. This is an increase of £3.2 million. This is due to a £3.9 million of additional fixed-term public health grants covering substance misuse support and service, as well as smoking cessation being subsumed into the wider public health ring-fence grant. This money will continue to be ring-fenced for these purposes. If I may, Mr. Chairman, to close, my thanks to the directors and officers for all their work in delivering vital services and budgets for the people of Suffolk. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Councillor Cenci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My portfolio, which is communities, comes under the Public Health and Communities, and Councillor Wiles has spoken about some of his responsibility alongside mine. I'd also like to thank Councillor Smith, the financial team and all the Directorate for guiding us through all of this. It really is, hard times, and I can see why Councillor Smith has some sleepless nights sometimes. Hopefully you'll sleep well after the council meeting. As Councillor Wiles says, the funding is mainly ring-fenced and is expected to be a balanced budget for 25-26. These are particularly challenging financial circumstances. Table 4 in Appendix E shows the Public Health and Communities net revenue budget. The Directorate in my portfolio is not forecasting any budget pressures in 2025-26 that would impact 26-27. So I like to speak about the items that I think are of more interest to the public and other councillors. Suffolk community libraries are expected to meet their budget, supported by 1.8 million, a transition fund, which was specifically established to cover one-off costs of bringing it back into house and is expected to be fully spent. This funding covers the transition review work, new IT system, IT investment, and under this budget, all 45 library sites will remain open with current opening hours protected. Appendix F, Table 2, shows some library schemes. There are 4 in the capital programme. Archives has completed its transformation programme, consolidating activity to the hold. This has seen a reduction in cost, increasing income achieved, and improvement in the services offered to customers. I support the recommendations laid out on page 76, section 3. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. And I'll just briefly touch on corporate services. Corporate services is kind of the backbone of the council. It's part of the organisation that makes everything else function, or helps everything else to function, I should say. It's our buildings, IT, digital systems, HR, finance, legal, democratic services, governance, policy, and communications. And of course, much of the work on our major corporate programmes, notably LGR and devolution, need preparation, and a lot of that preparation comes from those very teams, particularly finance, HR, IT, governance and communications, which is being led within corporate services. So it's a real critical service that often just sits under the radar. It really does underpin everything we do as a council, and when it works well, no one hears about it, and if things go wrong, it has real significance to the organisation. In the current financial year, corporate services is broadly on track. We're underspent by about 400,000, and that reflects the financial management that's been in place. Turning to the 26-27 year, the budget's about 42 million, and again about 5% of the total spend of the organisation, and that's 5% of the budget, and that's as it's been before. I have to say that is tight compared to other county councils, so a big well done to the team for keeping it at around 5%. We are lean in that field, but it is a critical area for delivering our services across the county. Going forward, as I said, the budget isn't looking to grow. I think just a couple of things I might just touch on. Obviously, around property in particular, we are seeing higher building maintenance costs. That's been driven not just by building inflation, but rising contractor costs, and also the age and the condition of some parts of the estate. But we're going to be able to do that within budget. And it's also worth noting that on the IT and digital front, in spring of 2026, we have to renew the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement. And that is a business critical system that we have to renew, but again, there will be some sort of pressures in there. But corporate services isn't looking to increase its budget. Overall, it's a pragmatic budget for corporate services in the year ahead. Councillor Smith, anything else you wish to add before I open it up to others? Happy to open it up to others. Yes, Councillor Stringer.
Yeah, thank you. Everyone's been shy today. Mind you, I can see why. I've read the figures. Genuinely. Genuinely. You have for another year concern from this side and empathy in terms of looking at some of these figures. Some of them are truly terrifying. And if I was sitting on those benches opposite, I certainly would be being kept up at night. I'm being kept up at night even though I sit on these benches, so because they are at that magnitude. Just picking out one alone, like the dedicated schools grant, I mean, if we weren't having to do that, because that's nothing we planned for or brought upon ourselves, it's not a mistake of this council's policy, it was something foisted on us by government. I mean, it equates to building a primary school every year. It equates to 180,000 potholes being able to be filled through no fault of our own. So when you convert it into other things, it brings it into stark relief that this is incredibly unfair and just one part of the policies that make up an overall budget. There is one thing that I might want to point out, and I've pointed out a few times before. Not going to be political about this, but if you go to the bank manager and you're hemorrhaging money, you can save more, but equally you can up your income. And we've certainly noticed that there are a few things. We're going to have to be looking at the books anyway in the next couple of years. We're going to have to get the lawyers involved to look at all what we own. Is there an opportunity now to look at the sum of stuff we own to see if we can have, I'm not going to use the word fire sale, but where we can actually look at some of those things that we could actually dispose of. I've forwarded on something today where someone's had a contract with us with an overage and they're saying, could we negotiate that? It would be a relatively small tens of thousands of pounds, but that could be one of many. And if we could quickly renegotiate some of these, it could generate significant income in the whole for work that we're probably going to have to do anyway. So I just want to, empathise with you, also put into stark relief some of the challenge, but also say perhaps we need to look at some of this in a slightly different way.
May I thank Councillor Stringer for his empathy. I am very grateful. This isn't an easy job to do, and the council is a big beast, and it takes a lot to fuel it. But we do always look at all of the various elements that make up that spending, including our list of assets. And I've reviewed that fairly recently, but I will review it again with Louise Ainsley behind me. I don't believe there's any quick sales that we can make at the moment, but this subject is always kept under review.
I can just add to that in terms of property and management of that, Councillor Joe Mason is here, but if you ever come across something you think isn't as it should be, or we can speed up a process, do contact Councillor Mason, because because he will be more than happy, I know, to take that on board, and he has with others in the past. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm saving most of my remarks for the full council meeting, but I do have a specific question. I'm not sure whether it's for Councillor West or Councillor Chambers, but it's following Councillor West's remarks about the spending of government grant. If you look on page 138 of the papers here, the local transport schemes capital spend, I'd like a little bit of clarification about whether we're actually going to be reducing our commitment, our financial commitment to the local transport schemes. That looks like what it's saying. Is there not a danger that if we reduce our commitment to local transport schemes because we're getting grant, that the government will think that they can reduce their grant as well?
So for clarity, that sits with Councillor Chambers. What I was referring to is the maintenance grant and the sort of disagreement over that, but your question is for Councillor Chambers.
So it's on page 21 or page 138, depending which page you look at, and it's bullet point number 2.
I'm going to have to just refer to Andrew if I can, please.
Good afternoon, members. Thank you. Happy to take that question. I think there is no danger of them reducing our grant as a result of how we've managed the money. The allocations have gone on schemes. Actually, what you're referring to there is the result of an historic money swap where we forward funded some activity and effectively are paying it back. So it won't have an impact on future grant allocations.
If I could ask a follow-up, will that have any impact on Council Highways locality budget?
Well, at the moment, this council ends in May. Let's wait till the statutory instrument's laid, and then we can discuss what the next steps might be. Councillor Lockington.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I have a question to Councillor Hopfensperger, and it's around point 361, I think, in Appendix C. It's where it says reduction to the third-party spent reduction. And we talk about the change to contract on Icanhoe. But at the end of that paragraph, it says the balance of the savings will have to come from review of other block contract arrangements. So which other block contracts are you looking at the moment? And also, how is it, because we know that the ICBs are also having to reduce, I know it's mainly about staff cost, but I could imagine there would be some other costs. So how is it going with working together with them? You know, because when two organizations have to reduce cost, it's not easy. But what other places would you like to go for reviewing of block contracts?
I'll let Gareth answer the contract question, but with your last point in regards to working with the ICBs, this was a question that was raised at scrutiny actually, because it is concerning when you have a partner organisation that has tight financial constraints put on it. There is a risk that that organisation tends to back into a corner and start protecting its financial budgets. We are extremely lucky in Suffolk that we have a very good relationship with our ICBs. We have procedures, services and policies in place to ensure that we have a truly integrated social care. There's still some work to do, but we have a good integration of social care and health, and that is the element of our partnership working, which is really strong and both sides are committed to. So we always strive to work within the, all organisations strive to work within the envelope, financial envelope they're given. But the overarching is to work best for the system to ensure that we have those best outcomes, and we know that both sides are committed to that. We are keeping a watchful eye, as you can imagine. But I'll hand over to Gareth with regards to the other organisations as part of that block contract.
Thank you. So just in terms of the Icanhoe contract, so rehabilitation following a stroke or an acquired brain injury is a responsibility for the NHS. So fundamentally, it's about helping someone to recover following that event. So for a number of years, we've subsidised that contract, working with the ICB. The ICB are the lead commissioner for that contract. So what we're looking for is ending that arrangement. The service will continue. The ICB will be the responsible commissioner for that contract. But if following the rehab, there is a need for ongoing care and support, then that's when we would step in. So in terms of if somebody needed a placement in one of the Care UK care homes, which forms part of the block, we'd provide that, or if not, any other contract, any other provision as anyone else. So rather than focusing on the diagnosis, we focus more on the person's presenting needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to come in? No questions? Okay, Councillor Smith, can you remind Cabinet what we're being asked to decide today, please?
Yes, can I say that I'm looking forward to 16 days' time to the debate at the full council for very many reasons, not least it is the final stage and we could put this budget to bed after a long number of months. Today, the Cabinet is being asked to recommend that Council approves the following paragraphs at its meeting on the 12th of February. I won't go through them, but A, B, C, little 1, little 2, D, E, F, G, and H, but I will just read out the final paragraph in parentheses. Any changes resulting from the final local government finance settlement for the county council and or district and borough councils finalising their council tax and business rates tax bases will be adjusted within the transfer to or from the council's risk reserve. The final settlement is expected in early February 2026. I recommend these to Cabinet colleagues.
Thank you. Cabinet, are we in favour of the recommendation that Councillor Smith just covered on page 76 of our papers? Is that agreed? That's agreed. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And can I just take this opportunity to thank Councillor Smith, Lou Ainsley and all the staff for all the work that's gone into getting us to today. It's a huge amount of preparation time going through line by line, and thank you to everyone that's been involved. The date of the next meeting will be on Tuesday the 24th of February at 2 p.m. So I close this meeting and thanks everyone for joining. Can I just ask councillors to please take all your belongings, paperwork and rubbish with you and place microphones, smart cards in the collection box and at the end of that row. Thanks very much and have a good evening.